All right. So this specifically says factoring when A equals 1. And what does that mean? What is A? What you are going to learn in the next unit, but what you need to know for today is what standard form of a quadratic is. A quadratic function is specifically when your variable is squared. And the standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c just represent numbers. They're placeholders for numbers. So we are going to be factoring today when this a, or the coefficient of the leading term, is 1. Okay? Factoring is breaking something down into its factors. When we talk about factoring quadratics, we are taking that quadratic and breaking it down to look something like x plus or minus something in one set of parentheses and x plus or minus something in a second set of parentheses, right? Remember when we had x plus 2 and x plus 3 and we FOILed them, or we used the box method? We're going backwards. But we are going backwards specifically when our first term is 1x squared, or just x squared. Those are little squiggles that just represent, they're going to be numbers later. Okay. The way that we do this, the method, remember when we did multiplying and the method was called FOIL? There's only one method we're going to use this time, and it is called the X game method. And that's what your Delta Math is going to show it as too, either the X method or the X game method. It is the easiest way to organize how to factor, and significantly easier than how I was taught 20 plus years ago. Bless you. To show you how this works, I'm going to give you our first example, and we're going to use that. So our first example is x squared plus 16x plus 15. So this is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where my a value is 1 because the coefficient of the leading term is 1. B is the coefficient of your x. So my b value is 16. And then c is your constant. So my c value is 15. This is important, bless you, this is important to know because we use our b and c values for the X game method. And the reason we call it an X game method is because we are going to draw a big X. This is similar to when we did the box method and I made you draw the boxes. Now I'm going to make you draw the X's. When we fill this out, our C value is going to go in the top part of the X, and our B value is going to fill in the bottom part of the X. So my B value is 16, that goes on the bottom, and my C value is 15, that goes on the top. Our goal here is to break this up into two sets of parentheses, where the first term in each set of parentheses is x, because x times x gives you x squared, right? And then the other two numbers are going to be found by finishing this x. And to finish this, to fill in these two blank sides, which are the two numbers that go in the parentheses, you answer the question, what numbers multiply to 15 and also add to 16. That's how you fill in the two missing parts of the box, of the x, excuse me. This is where knowing your multiplication facts really comes in handy. So what pair of numbers multiply to 15? 3 and 5. Do 3 and 5 also add to 16? No, they add to 8. So it's not those two. So what other pair of numbers multiply to be 15? 15 and 1. And 15 plus 1 is 16, right? So those are my answers. 15 and 1. They multiply up and they add down. Let me say that one more time, but look up here. These two numbers multiply up and they add down. 15 times 1 is 15, and 15 plus 1 is 16. And both of them are positive, so to fill this out, factoring gives me x plus 15 times x plus 1. If I FOIL this, it will give me the polynomial that I started with. This is factoring. Okay, we're just going backwards, but specifically when our first term is just x squared. Let's try another one. We're going to do x squared plus 9x plus 14. I'm going to draw my x again. I like to make my x about 3 lines tall, personally, because I write kind of big. And then remember, C goes on top and B goes on bottom. What is the C value of this 14? So 14 goes on top, and then what is my B value? 9. So that goes on bottom. So multiply up, add down. What do you know multiplies to be 14? 7 and 2. Do those add to be 9? Yes. So 7, 2, and then we just set it up as x plus 7 in one set of parentheses and x plus 2 in the other. Okay. Not terrible. I will say that when it is plus and plus, like these last two examples, that's the easiest version. But they won't always be adding and adding. So let's look at how it's different if we have x squared minus 5x, but plus 6. Oh, forgot to draw my x. All right, C goes on top. C is 6. B goes on bottom. What is my B value? -5. This means that my two numbers multiply to be positive 6, but add to be -5. It will have to be a negative times a negative. And then, Izzy, you said -2 times -3. -2 times -3 gives me positive 6, but then -2 plus -3 does give me -5. And so when I fill that out, my parentheses are now x minus 2 and x minus 3. So let's make a quick note of something that I just noticed. When your C value is positive, your two answers have the same sign. Notice in all three examples we've done, They were plus, 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 minus, minus. And our C value was positive in all three of these examples. Because the only way to add up to be a negative, but multiply to be a positive, is to have them be a negative times a negative. All right, we're doing great. I only have 2 more examples. All right, let's do one slightly different this time. Let's look at x squared plus 4x minus 21. All right, my C value is negative this time. So C is negative 21, that goes on top. And then on bottom, it's positive 4. If I'm multiplying 2 numbers and their answer is negative, you have to have a negative and a positive. So before we even finish this, we can say that when C is negative, our answers will have different signs. Or opposite signs. And it's actually really easy to figure out which one has to be positive and which one has to be negative based on what your B value is. You know it has to be 7 and 3, right? But how do I take 7 and 3 and make it equal to positive 4? Negative 3, or 7 minus 3. So then my parentheses here are x plus 7 and x minus 3. Factoring is really easy if you can remember your multiplication facts. All right, last example. We've done a plus plus, we've done a minus plus, we've done a plus minus. So the last one is when both of these are subtraction. X squared minus 4x minus 32. Right, so these are both subtraction signs. What is my C value? Negative 32. C is negative, so we already know we have one positive and one negative answer. What is my B value? Negative 4. So, multiply together to be 32, but the numbers are 4 away from each other. So 8 and 4, right? 8 times 4 in some way will give me 32. One of them has to be negative. But when I combine them, my answer has to be negative, which means the bigger number has to be negative. Negative 8 plus 4. So x minus 8 and x plus 4. It helps me to remember that when C is negative, they have to have different signs, and the bigger number always takes the same sign as your B value. So notice here, your B value was positive and your bigger number was positive. But in this last one, the B value was negative and your bigger number was negative. It's okay if you don't remember that. So long as you know your facts, you will be able to figure that out. How you feel?